Hi, this is Kevin at the Virtual Planetarium at Raritan Valley Community College. Welcome to our weekly Star Talk. Today we're going to be talking about 4 planets we can see in the nighttime sky, as well as a very famous summertime constellation. But before we talk about that, let's talk about our upcoming moon phases. We have a last quarter moon on July 2nd. The next new moon is going to be on July 9th, and then we have a first quarter moon on July 17th. Alright, so let's take a look at our nighttime sky. We currently have our sky set up for 8:45 at night, and this is shortly after the sun has set, but before it gets completely dark. If you look towards the west at around about this time, you're going to see a very bright dot just north of west. So we have this very bright dot right over here, and this is actually the brightest planet in the sky, and that is the planet Venus. Now, if we zoom into Venus, using our Planetarium software, or if you look at it through a telescope, you'll notice that it's missing a little bit up here on the top left half. And you notice that it kind of looks like a gibbous phase. As the weeks and months move along, it's actually going to be getting smaller and smaller in the sky. The phases are going to be getting smaller and smaller. But the planet itself is actually going to be getting closer to the Earth, which means that even though this gibbous phase is going to get to a quarter phase and then a crescent phase like our moon, it's going to be getting brighter and brighter in the sky because it gets closer to the Earth. So as the weeks and months move along, keep looking towards the west and you'll see Venus higher and higher up in the sky and also brighter and brighter in the sky. So that's something to look forward to. Now let's scale Venus back, and actually just to the left of Venus we have another semi-bright dot right over here. It's not nearly as bright as Venus, and as it gets darker you'll notice that it has a slightly reddish tint, and that is because this is the planet Mars. But again, these are 2 planets that you can see very easily just after sunset, but just before it gets completely dark. Now, I mentioned we're going to be talking about 4 planets in the sky. These are just 2 of them. So to talk about the other ones, we're going to have to look south, and we're also going to have to fast forward time. So fast forward time and wait for it to get completely dark. And actually, before we talk about the next 2 planets, I want to talk about a very famous summertime constellation with a very bright star in the middle of it that we can see very easily. Now I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit more towards the south, and the constellation we're going to be talking about is called Scorpio, and that's because it is supposed to be a big scorpion in the sky that is actually just above the southern horizon. We currently have the sky set up for about 10:45 at night, and Scorpius is very easy to recognize because it has a very funky curve to it. So it's a group of stars that are at a kind of hook-like shape in the sky. So if we put up the stick figure, you actually can't see the end of the hook because it's behind this tree right here. But the stars kind of make this little hook shape right here. But the brightest star of this constellation is this reddish star right here, known as the heart of the Scorpion, or known by its official name of Antares. Now, if you know a little bit of Latin, you can break this word apart and realize what it stands for. We can divide it into the second part of it right here being Aries. Aries is the Greek name for the Roman god of Mars, for the planet Mars, and the prefix ant means rival. And that is because this star looks about as reddish as Mars does in the sky, and Mars actually goes right by this star at certain times of the year. So this star was named for being the rival of Mars because they kind of look similar in the sky. But in reality, Mars and Antares are actually very, very different. First of all, Antares is a star. It is actually a red supergiant star, and that means that it is about 700 times bigger than our sun. So here we have Antares up here on the left for a little size comparison. And then we have the sun all the way down here in the bottom corner, and it's barely just a pixel in this video. So that is how much bigger Antares is compared to the sun, and we know that the sun is much, much bigger than Mars. So Antares is unbelievably bigger than Mars, but in the sky they kind of look the same because of the color, and that's why it got the name of Antares, or rival of Mars. Now, another way to understand how absolutely massive Antares is by putting it in the center of our solar system. So we're going to look at our solar system from above. It's going to come up in just a little bit. We're going to be able to see all the orbits of our planets. We have the inner planets right here in the center. We have the orbit of Jupiter right here's the next one. Then we have the orbit of Saturn, and then Uranus, and then Neptune. And then the sun is obviously right here in the middle. Now, if we were to replace the sun with Antares, like I said, Antares is about 700 times the size of the sun. So if we were to put Antares in the center of our solar system, the inner planets would be completely enveloped by the star, and so would most of the asteroid belt. And we see that it's almost reaching the edge of Jupiter's orbit right here. So this star is absolutely massive, and the only thing it shares with Mars is how it looks in the sky, reddish, and the path Mars kind of takes in the sky as well. Alright, but like I said before, we're going to look at 2 more planets. So to do that, we're actually going to fast forward time to just after midnight, and we're going to look towards the southeast. We can see a very bright dot right here. This one right here is the second brightest planet in the sky, and that's also the biggest planet in our solar system, and that is the planet Jupiter. Now, if you don't have a telescope, you can look at Jupiter with a pair of binoculars. And with just a small pair of binoculars, you'll notice that Jupiter is right in the center of the view, but around Jupiter there's going to be 4 dots that are actually pretty bright, and they're going to be in line. And these are Jupiter's 4 biggest and brightest moons, known as the Galilean moons. Now, just to the right of Jupiter, we have another fairly bright dot. It's not nearly as bright as Jupiter or Venus, but it's still fairly easy to find. And this is the second biggest planet in our solar system, and probably the second most beautiful one after the Earth. And this is the planet Saturn, which is very famous for its rings. Now, to see the rings, you need a little more than a small pair of binoculars, so you definitely need at least a small telescope to see these rings, but you can still see them fairly easily with even the small telescope, so that's something to look for if you have one. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you learned something new. You should try to go outside and try to find Venus just after the sun sets, but again, before it gets completely dark, it's already visible because that's how bright it is in the sky. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like, and if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting a new video out every week, and thank you so much for joining us, and hope you have a great week.